Seahawks coach Mike Macdonald loves versatility on the defensive line, making Rylie Mills, coming out of Notre Dame, the prime candidate to select on day 3. What does Rylie Mills bring to Seattle as a 5th-round pick from the Fighting Irish? We're going to ask his defensive line coach here on a special Saturday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A special thanks to all our valued listeners, whether you're tuning in from Corvallis, Oregon, or South Bend, Indiana. Thank you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. Continuing our NFL Draft coach interview series, we're heading to South Bend to chat with Notre Dame defensive line coach Al Washington, who's joining us here on the phone. Thank you so much, Coach Washington. First off, Coach Washington, I want to congratulate you on having another player drafted from your defensive line. I know Seahawk fans are extremely excited about Rylie Mills just from the press conferences that he's had so far.
Yeah, he's A1A. I think what you see from, perspective of when you hear him talk, when you see him in interviews and things like that, what you see is somebody that's very mature. It's almost a pro in how his demeanor, how he carries himself in his demeanor, I should say. You're going to get that same type of player. I think he's going to always be a prepared player. He's going to be in top shape, physical condition. He's going to do his job at the highest level. So I'm thrilled for him and this opportunity, and I know you all in Seahawk Nation will be excited.
Now, I'm going to ask you up front right now. One of the things that surprised me a little bit when we were interviewing Rylie in his conference call right after he'd been picked, we were asking about his injury and his recovery time, and he was very confident telling us that I'm gonna be doing football stuff before training camp starts. And John Schneider kind of pushed back against that a little bit. But based on what you know in the conversations that maybe you've had with Rylie, do you know anything about his timeline and what your expectations would be as far as how much he could be able to contribute for this team this year?
Yeah, I don't know any timeline. I'm not sure about that detail, but I do know he's confident in his ability to contribute to the team this year. So I'm not the best person to ask in that regard, but whatever he can do, he will do. And from everything I've heard, he's ahead of schedule. And I think the fact that the Seahawks felt, compelled to draft him when they did kind of speaks to his progress.
Yeah, and you first started to coach him in 2022 coming up from Ohio State. He was going into his 3rd season on campus. What were some things that stood out to you initially as you got to start knowing Rylie and going back and watching the film? What were some things that jumped out as he started to take on a much bigger role once you arrived as the defensive line coach?
Yeah, so what stood out to me instantly was how motivated he was. I think one of the first conversations we had when I got hired was, marking out his goals as a player. I think his goals were kind of were admirable, right? It was individual success, right? He wanted to be an All-America, obviously wanted to make it to the NFL, but he also wanted to be a captain. And I think his goal to be a leader for his teammates was important. So that's what stood out to me instantly. But he had a really strong work ethic, man. Like every goal he had a plan of how he wanted to accomplish it. And it wasn't easy, right? It wasn't just something that happened instantaneous. It was something he developed and worked towards. And he allowed me to coach him, thankfully. And so I know that the coaches there are going to love working with him because whatever you ask of him, he'll do. And he'll take ownership of it, and he'll bring it to life.
You mentioned the captain, the C on his chest, and you can see in the pictures just how proud he was having that C on his uniform. And that is a major honor at a blue blood like Notre Dame to be selected as a team captain. What is it about him away from the field that makes him a player that teammates gravitate to and they view him in that manner where he is a captain? He is a guy that is going to be looked up upon by all of his teammates, from coaches. What stands out just away from what he does in the field to make him a captain-worthy selection?
Yeah, I think leaders. We talk a lot about this in our room. Leaders got to be seen, heard, and felt. I think you think about the best leaders in any profession. Those are the individuals that are seen doing the right things. You hear them speaking the right things, and you feel them emotionally. And I think Riley was able to do that with the team. So I think he's really embodied those characteristics. I would say this too. As a coach, you lean on your leaders, right? You lean on people who are able to kind of get the message that you are trying to put forth, trying to make sure that people live up to that standard, and hold people accountable. And that was Riley, So I thought he did a great job in terms of taking the young guys under his wing and holding them accountable, man. And if something happened, if there was somebody doing something under the standard, I really wouldn't have to enforce it. It would be Riley, and it wouldn't be in a way, in a negative way. It'd be taking time with a guy, or trying to understand why somebody's not getting it, and trying to understand that person and connecting with that person to help that person elevate. So, I think those are the ways that Riley was able to lead our unit, and I know he'll continue that his next stop.
One of the things that really jumped out to me when I was watching Notre Dame film from the last couple of years, was able to get my hands on some All-22 from the past few years, and just felt like his presence as a pass rusher this past season, there just seemed to be a light switch that really clicked on. And it doesn't just come in the sacks department, but you just felt him a lot more in that pass rushing department. From a coaching standpoint, was that something that you felt coming this upcoming season, where the pressures had gone up the previous 2 years, but really it was boiling down to finishing? What did you see on that front that really led to that breakout year from him in that department going after quarterbacks?
Yeah, Corbin, that's a great assessment by you. I think what one of the areas that he wanted to focus on in his final year was the pass rush, and in deciding to come back for his final year of eligibility, he wanted to improve that. I think the past 2 years prior, he was a guy that obviously could get to the quarterback, but he wasn't finishing. And if you would study his tape in 22, I think the finish came down to the little things, and one of the areas was flexibility. And so in his decision to come back, that was an area of focus, like I said, but the plan was to enhance his flexibility. And that came through yoga, that came through, having a plan of post workout, a flexibility plan that he worked with Lauren Landau, our strength coach. And this is something I saw him work every day. And I'm talking like maniacally. And it was something that really the fruit of his labor, it really didn't show until, I would say, like week 3 or 4. I think the first 3 games he had gotten back, he had gotten close, but he didn't, he wasn't, the production wasn't there in terms of the sacks. And then I would say after about the 3rd game, man, it started to overflow. I think he led the nation in sacks for defensive tackles. And so he had multiple games where he had 2 or more sacks. He had 3 against Florida State. So I think that was an area this past off season was an area of focus for him. And I think he produced, and his effort showed this past year, because I thought he made major strides there.
One of the things that was interesting, we got to talk to one of the Seahawks lead scouts, actually their assistant GM, Nolan Teasley. And one thing that he said immediately jumped out of the Seahawks scouting process was that Riley was in the 92nd percentile for get off on the snap, which is a huge thing that the Seahawks look at. But when you look at maybe the skills that aren't looked at as much by fans, speed, 40 time, quickness, all those things, when you look at the actual football skills that Riley brings to the table, what do you think gives him the best chance at success at the next level? It sounded like Teasley said that get off was a big thing that they were really excited about. But what are some of those football skills that you see? You're like, hey, that is going to translate to the next level for this kid to be productive in Seattle?
Yeah, I think he has a great sense of anticipation, right? So one of the most undervalued skills of a defensive lineman is the get off, and so much of that is stimulus response, and that can be trained and developed. I think the other part is being efficient in your stance. I think Riley worked at those two things, and that the way you enhance stimulus response, A, you drill it, but B, I think film study. Because a lot of times it's not just the football that moves first. Sometimes it can maybe the knee of the guard, right? Sometimes there's something unique about what the quarterback's doing in his cadence, right? We don't go off of sound, right? You want to go off movement, but there's certain things every week that we zero in on. And I think film study pays. I think that helps in terms of getting off the football. But the one characteristic I think Riley that he is really has done a great job of is using his hands, and that is transferable. And I talk about using your hands in the run game, being able to gain horizontal leverage, get your hands inside, being able to disengage, consistently. We take great pride in that. Our defensive linemen take great pride in that, but Riley embodies that. And then when you talk about in the pass rush, I think his rush ability, he can power rush you. He builds his house off his power rush, but off of that, he's able to change the tempo and work an edge. And I think in both of those styles of rush, he's able to use his hands with a plan. Because the power rush, he can go push pull, and then he can snatch, and then he can stack the blocker. When he's working an edge, he can side scissor. He can do all these things, but the hands is the common thread. And I think his ability to use his hands allows him to make plays in the run and the pass. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I appreciate that insight. But I with all the talk with his ability to win with power, with finesse, being able to test edges, I know that he played more defensive tackle. He said this to us. He played more DT early, got to play more on the edge later in his career at Notre Dame. But when you look at where he fits into Seattle's defense, Mike Macdonald, I was not surprised at all that he loved Rylie Mills, because Mike Macdonald loves 285, 290-pound guys that can play multiple positions. But when you look at his positional flexibility, do you see him being a better fit playing a 3-tech role, or being a 5-tech, or even the 2-point stance outside at the NFL level? Do you see there being a spot where he's better suited to play more of his snaps, even if he's going to be moving around the line?
Yeah. So Corbin, when I first got hired, he was a DN. He was like a 270-pound, like field in for us. After the first year, we kind of all got together, and the way, pretty much we had lost some guys inside. So we proposed, hey, Riley, put on a couple pounds here, put on, 10, 15 pounds, and, get moved to tackle. And the way we used our tackle, we would align them in the B gap, but we also put him in the 4-eye. That's right on the inside eye of the tackle.
Yep.
And then we'd put him in our heavier personnel packages. We put him, on the edge, the C gap, and whether that's playing head up on the tight end or outside. So he has experience doing it all. I think with Seattle, I think his strength is in the B gap. I think he's going to be most productive in the B gap. I think athletically, he's a hard match for a guard, and he's strong enough inside to win his one-on-one in terms of if he has to deal with an aggressive block. He's strong enough to anchor in there, but I think he's very effective in the B gap, and I thought for us when we made that move wholesale, I thought he took off. I thought he was comfortable with it, and he's unique because, most guys, that are that body type, they're not athletic enough to be on the outside, and vice versa. Most ends aren't strong enough to handle the lifestyle of a B gap player.
Yeah.
Man, he's just unique that way. So I think the best thing for Riley is however Seattle wants to use him, he'd have at least. I don't think he needs to be in a 2-point stance. I'm sure he'd be laughing right now if he heard this conversation, because I think his best strength is his hand down and going forward. But man, I definitely think his experience being on the outside and being able to go in, all those experiences that will help him in whatever Seattle asks him to do.
Yeah, I'm sure that he's going to see Leonard Williams and Jaron Reed go out in a two-point stance occasionally, and it's maybe start to think, why can't I do that, Coach?
Keep his head
Mike
down.
Macdonald does that with his big guys, and he's always been successful doing that. But you talked so much about the strengths. You've had a chance to coach them the last 3 years.
Yeah.
What's the biggest area or biggest areas that Riley's got to clean up at the next level once he's healthy enough to get on the field for him to really reach his potential in Mike Macdonald's defense?
Yeah, I just think like a lot of players, right? It's he's a big, tall player, so I think just constantly working his leverage, continue to build on that consistently. But man, I'll tell you, he's probably one of the more well-rounded players fundamentally that I've ever been around, because you think about his career in college, I thought was impacted by his work ethic and embodying technique. As a coach, you take great pride in your players and what they do, but you take the greatest amount of pride and appreciation for when guys are using technique. And what that does is it allows you to win consistently. So I think just continued focus on that. And Seattle has a rich tradition on defense, man, going back to the Legion of Boom. Like, guys in those defenses, they always are an attack. And I don't think that's not going to change. I think Coach Macdonald is one of the best. He's one of the best defensive minds in football. So I know Seattle's going to what they do is really playing to Riley's strengths as a player athletically. And so I think he just has to continue to work on the little things, the details that they're going to ask him to do, and he'll be fine, because he's certainly going to understand the scheme, and he's going to be able to translate the meeting to the field.
If there's any positives with him having to wait to get back on the field, he can attack some of those fine details, including the part of the game. So that could end up being something that proves kind of beneficial for him when he gets back on the field. Coach Washington, I've greatly appreciated the opportunity to have you on here. We do this with all the coaches that we bring on the show. Look, you've had a chance to coach Riley for 3 years. We can tell by the interviews that we've had so far that he's got a personality that seems like it's about as big as the guy. He seems like he's got a really fun personality. Being able to coach him 3 years, is there a story or a game or specific plays that jump out to you that really embody who Rylie Mills is, that would get the fans fired up a little bit?
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's a particular story. But I would tell you, this past year, man, through the entire year, I thought it was an up and down year for us. Obviously, early in the year, we had a tough loss, but it ended on a high note. We wouldn't have got to that high note without Riley and his leadership and his willingness to stand out in front of the team. But one of the coolest things was, against Florida State, he had 3 sacks in that game.
Yeah.
And I never forget, after the first one, he's excited, and every sack he had 6 different dances after a sack. So, we give him a hard time for that. And then the second sack came. So then he starts counting. Then he got the 3rd sack. And I don't know if there's ever a game in high school or college that certainly not college. He had 3 sacks in one game against Florida State. And then he's going through counting 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, dude, you don't even know you're out of dance moves right now, man. Usually you got 1 per game. I said, man, you're out of them. And he started cracking up. And that's just, that's Riley, man. His celebration dances have definitely improved from 22. So maybe in the NFL he'll have something even cooler. So but nah, he's a huge personality, and the guys in the locker room are going to love him, and I know the coaches are going to love him, man. In Seattle, the 12th man are going to love him, man. I can't wait to watch him out there, and I can't wait to be a part of that great environment.
I'm looking forward to seeing what new dance moves that he's got once he gets back on the field. Coach Washington, it has been a pleasure, and best of luck to you on the recruiting trail in this upcoming season. And let's hope Rylie Mills gets back on the field as soon as possible so Seahawks fans can see what he's made of in blue and green.
You got it. Have a good one, Corbin. Thanks for your time.
You too. Take care.
Yes, sir.